I believe in honoring each other's energies and stories. I do mention difficult experiences I've lived, including references to abuse and trauma. I encourage you to honor your boundaries and invite you to stay only if it feels right to you.
So I was trying to put together this Maryhill video that I wanted to share next, and I was having a real go of it. It's so beautiful and profound to me, and I'm realizing that a big part of the joy of Maryhill has such a direct connection to suffering and sorrow that is a part of the origin story of how I ended up at Maryhill and living in my trailer and car for 6 months and deciding that I want to figure out a way to incorporate this into my life more often. All of that has a story that comes before it. I like to think of my childhood as like I was traipsing around my childhood, just jet setting, had my little passport, trying to collect all my stamps, and my stamps and my passport were the adverse childhood experiences scale. I might do some more videos about ACEs and what they are and what that scale is and how I use it. I found it to be useful for framing certain things so that I can work with them in my own personal adult life. As a child, I got 9 of 10 of my ACEs stamps. Having a childhood where you have a lot of adverse childhood experiences, what I did in my childhood was that the truth that I was living and the truth I projected outward were not the same thing. I learned how to adapt really well to my environment. I learned how to find success shifting a narrative so that it wasn't really the actual truth that I was living. And that is a wild way to spend your childhood training your brain. I have spent my adulthood really working hard on finding ways to rewire my brain so that I can function and ultimately live with more joy. That's like my bottom line, by the way, y'all. It's like healing for life so that I can access joy, and then creating environments where other people can feel healing so that they can also experience joy. When you are a survivor of childhood violence and abuse, that in and of itself has created a certain way of how I function and interact with the world and how the world interacts with me that I have had to find some peace with the fact that sometimes I find myself in spaces where I feel like this is like a re-victimization thing, like, in some way. Just like being at peace with the fact that re-victimization is a thing, and that doesn't mean that I need to be re-victimized, and that the work that I continually do with my brain helps bolster my proactive, preventative things that I can understand about boundaries and how the world works and all of that, and not only build a confidence that I can keep myself safe, but keep myself safe. So I'm still working on that. On April 7th, 2024, I walked into a bar a quarter mile from what was our house, and I didn't have my phone. It was a super casual, just walking in. I was going to work on some things for work. It was a Sunday. That day, I was drugged and sexually assaulted by a stranger, myself, in a location that I have no idea where I was. I share both of those things because they're important and valuable to the whole narrative of a level of suffering that I've had in my life, and the beauty and finding joy and finding new ways that I've also experienced, and the hope and magicality of zooming out on our earthly experience, realizing how connected we are, how both fragile and beautiful this life experience is. That's this in and of itself, me putting this video together and sharing it, is a part of my healing, because it helps me no longer have to find ways to have a truth that I'm living, but then what I'm projecting is something different.
Because this is a story about healing, about finding myself, and about the deeply connective magic that sings itself universal when I started listening. And when Duke and I rolled into Maryhill, Washington, I had started listening. We stayed 2 locations in this area. We stayed at Maryhill State Park and Peach Beach RV. I like them both and would recommend them both. But definitely, if I would ever go back to this area, I would stay at Peach Beach RV again. The hosts were friendly and helpful. The facilities were clean, and we were lucky enough to be in this area that was kind of tucked back. The spaces are pretty close and connected to each other, but even the neighbors that were close to us were fun and friendly. And even though there were a couple that came around looking for food, just make sure that you have everything tucked up at night and you should be good to go. Also, can we have a side note about how when you look across the river at night to the Oregon side and you see Biggs Junction, it's like a mirage that looks like Las Vegas, like so random, but still beautiful from the space that we could see it from our campsite. So before I got to Maryhill, I had been doing all sorts of collecting and foraging for nature, and I had all this nature that was with me, and it was feeling very connective, and I was just leaning into what my heart wanted to do. And it was at Maryhill that I started adding glues and adhesives to the nature I was collecting, and I was just trying out different pieces of adhesives and nature that I had collected and seeing what I could do to put all that together and really express the healing journey that I am on. Another thing that I think was really important that happened during this trip is I came back over to the Oregon side and I hopped over to the Dalles. And the Dalles is actually the town where I was born and raised. I went and visited the public library there, and that was an environment of absolute safety and joy for me. And it was really fun to go back and see some of those artifacts, including these wooden bears and the beautiful card catalog. They have one piece of it left that they still have there in the library, which was really cool to see. And then I was so lucky to have my husband Anthony be able to come visit me for a few days while I was in Maryhill. This was a really special time for Anthony and I to be together. I had spent the month prior to this living with his mom, my mother-in-law, Mother Mary, and her husband Dale, while Mother Mary was in her end-of-life transition and in the dying process. So what was calling my heart more than anything was to be there at the Stonehenge replica in Maryhill. So it's actually a war memorial, but it's built as a replica of if Stonehenge was fully built. If you're a person that feels energy and goes to spaces and places and really revels in the magic that you can feel in geographic locations, this is a place I would recommend you visit sometime. The fall equinox was feeling so important to me at this point because of so many things that I was experiencing around death or transition or transformation, just the end of something so that something else must begin, was so strong on me at that time. And so after we had this morning experience up at Stonehenge, we came back down to the river and I did a blessings and gratitude time for the natural experience of death, decay, ending, and how that's a part of the whole cycle, and that it's a beautiful part of the cycle, as painful and dark as it can feel sometimes, how necessary it is. And maybe for me, how necessary it is to no longer fight it, to lean in, to experience it, and to have reverence and gratitude for it. That whole day of the equinox was really beautiful, and went up for sunset to Stonehenge again. And there was a woman who was getting her photos done because she was getting ready to have her baby any day now. We started talking about how it was the sunset of the fall equinox, and how the equinox is always the ending of something so that something else can begin. And like how beautiful that energy is, that she was up there for the fall equinox to take these pictures, and she was crying and I was crying and her mom was crying, and we were just having this deeply connective moment around all of these hopes and dreams that were about ready to happen, celebrating this new life that was coming in. And I was there with this like deep intention of like letting go of and being present with the grief and loss of my mother Mary leaving this earth. It created this like infinity sign, and it just was the most beautiful thing. Don't have the words to describe. Maybe the most incredible and powerful part of this whole story is that I woke up the next morning to find out that Mother Mary took her last breath on this earth. And oh my goodness, y'all, it is like incredible. This cycle, this like universal language that I've always heard, but I've just never so deeply felt and understood. And Maryhill opened that. It cracked it right open for me. I mean, like, it was cavernous in a really beautiful way in just a number of days. And it really catapulted the energy, the intention, the space that I found myself in over the next 6 months. I do know that I want to share this, and I do know that there is healing in here, deep, deep healing, and I feel it every day. Thank you for being here with me on this Maryhill journey. Thank you for sitting and seeing me through sharing some of my story. For the joy of it all, I want to end our time here with the best Mother Mary content I have. Love you, Mother Mary. Glad you're always with me. And to everyone else, love you, see you, bye.
Mother Mary,
Yes.
tell me how you feel about people that call pigs in a blanket a little weenie wrapped in bread.
No, they're crazy. They don't know Jack. I have worked in restaurants for over 60 years. I know what pigs in a goddamn blanket are. They are sausage with a pancake wrapped around it. That is pigs in a blanket.
For Alameda, South Carolina.